A battlefield, somewhere east of the Caspian Sea. The year is 530 BCE. The dust has settled. The greatest conqueror the world has ever known lies dead in the sand. His army, invincible for decades, has been obliterated. A woman stands over his corpse. In her hand, a wineskin filled with blood. She kneels. She lifts his severed head, and she submerges it. "You thirsted for blood. Now drink your fill," she says. Her name was Tomyris. She united nomadic tribes. She defeated the Persian Empire. She killed Cyrus the Great, the man who had conquered Babylon, Lydia, and half the known world. And then history erased her. Persian scribes rewrote the story. Greek historians called her a barbarian. Later empires buried her name beneath centuries of silence. This is the story of a queen who won every war, so her own historians made sure no one would remember. The 6th century BCE. The Central Asian steppes stretch endlessly under an unforgiving sky. This is the land of the Massagetae, a confederation of nomadic tribes who live by the horse, the bow, and the blade. Here, survival depends on movement, on strategy, on strength. Women ride alongside men. They hunt, they fight, and in rare cases, they lead. But leadership is earned in blood. To the west, the Persian Empire is expanding. Cyrus the Great has crushed every kingdom in his path. Babylon fell. Lydia fell. The Greeks pay tribute. His empire stretches from the Mediterranean to the edges of India. Now, he turns his eyes east, toward the steppes, toward the Massagetae, toward Tomyris. She is a widow, a mother, and a queen who inherited power not through birth alone, but through respect. Her people follow her because she has proven herself, on horseback, in council, in war. Cyrus sends emissaries. He offers marriage, an alliance. She refuses. She knows what marriage means: annexation, absorption, erasure. So Cyrus does what Cyrus does best. He invades. The first wave comes quietly. Cyrus doesn't march his full army across the Sirdarya River. He sends a smaller force, a trap disguised as diplomacy. He leaves behind a camp, wine, food, supplies. Tomyris' son, Spargapises, leads a detachment to investigate. Young, eager, untested. He finds the camp abandoned. His men drink the wine. They celebrate. And then the Persians return. Spargapises is captured, humiliated, chained. When he realizes he's been used as bait, he takes his own life. Tomyris receives the news in her tent. The candle flickers. Her hands do not shake. She sends a message to Cyrus. "You have taken my son through treachery, not valor. Now I will give you your fill of blood." She does not grieve in public. She plans. She pulls her tribes together. She studies the terrain. She knows Cyrus will advance with his full army now, confident, arrogant, certain of victory. She lets him come. The Massagetae fall back. They lure the Persians deeper into the steppes, away from supply lines, away from reinforcements. And then they turn. The battle is brutal. The Massagetae fight with the fury of people defending their land, their children, their existence. Cyrus's army, trained, disciplined, legendary, is torn apart. Herodotus, writing decades later, calls it one of the fiercest battles of the ancient world. When the dust clears, Cyrus is dead. Tomyris finds his body. She orders his head severed. She fills a wineskin with blood, human blood, and plunges his head inside. You thirsted for blood. Now drink your fill. It is not cruelty. It is justice. It is a message to every empire that thinks it can swallow the world. The Massagetae remain free for generations. But empires do not forgive. Cyrus's son, Cambyses II, inherits the throne. He does not speak of his father's defeat. Persian chroniclers writing in the royal court begin to reshape the story. Some omit Tomyris entirely. Others rewrite Cyrus's death as an accident, a minor skirmish, not a catastrophic loss. Greek historians are more honest. Herodotus records her victory, but even he cannot resist framing her as other, a barbarian queen, a savage, a woman driven by vengeance, not strategy. Later writers go further. Ctesias, a Greek physician at the Persian court, tells a different story altogether, one where Cyrus dies fighting Indian tribes, no mention of Tomyris. Strabo, centuries later, questions whether she even existed. By the time the Romans write their histories, Tomyris is a footnote, a myth, a legend told by nomads who leave no written records. Islamic scholars, inheriting Persian and Greek texts, continue the erasure. A woman who defeated the founder of an empire? Impossible. Unthinkable. European historians, translating these texts in the Renaissance, barely mention her. The wineskin of blood becomes a metaphor. The battle becomes folklore. And Tomyris disappears. There are no monuments to Tomyris, no temples, no inscriptions carved in stone. The Massagetae were nomads. They did not build cities. They did not commission statues. Their history lived in oral tradition, in songs sung around fires, in stories passed from grandmother to granddaughter. And oral tradition is fragile. When the tribes dissolved, absorbed into larger empires, conquered by new waves of invaders, the songs stopped. Her lineage, if it survived, left no record. Her descendants, if they existed, were anonymous. The men who inherited her victory took credit for it, or ignored it, or rewrote it entirely. This is how erasure works. Not with a single violent act, but with 1,000 small silences. A historian who decides her story is unverified. A scribe who omits her name. A scholar who calls her a myth. One generation forgets, the next never learns. And so a woman who killed the most powerful man in the world becomes a ghost. If stories like these matter to you, if you believe history should remember the women it tried to erase, subscribe. Help us restore the voices buried beneath centuries of silence. But ghosts have a way of returning. In the 20th century, archaeologists began excavating burial mounds across the Eurasian steppes. Kurgans, massive earthen tombs used by Scythian and Massagetae peoples. Inside, they found something unexpected. Women, buried with weapons, with horses, with armor. Warrior women. DNA analysis confirmed it. Skeletal remains showed evidence of combat injuries. These were not symbolic burials. These were real fighters. Historians returned to Herodotus. They reread his account of Tomyris, not as mythology, but as documented fact. Feminist scholars began asking new questions. Why had her story been dismissed? Why was a male conqueror's defeat at the hands of a woman so difficult for history to accept? The evidence was there all along. The ancient sources never denied her existence. They simply minimized her, framed her as an outlier, a barbarian, a woman driven by vengeance, not strategy. But the archaeology tells a different story. Tomyris was not an exception. She was part of a culture that valued women as warriors, as leaders, as equals in war. Her victory over Cyrus was not luck. It was skill. And her erasure was not accidental. It was deliberate. Today, Tomyris is remembered. Barely. A statue in Uzbekistan, a mention in feminist history books, a footnote in military studies.
But she deserves more. She proved that women could lead armies, that they could defeat empires, that they could reshape the world. And history responded by forgetting her name. This is not ancient history. This is a pattern. How many women have been erased because their achievements threatened the men who wrote the records? How many victories were stolen? How many names were buried? Tomyris won every war she fought, but she could not win against the historians who came after her. Her story is a reminder. History is not neutral. It is written by those in power. And for centuries, those in power were men who could not imagine or could not tolerate a woman standing over the corpse of the world's greatest conqueror. But we can imagine it now. Her name was Tomyris, and she won. If this story moved you, subscribe, because the women history erased deserve to be remembered.